Hey guys, it's Chris from Magnetron. Today we're going to be taking a look at reinstalling your Windows on your machine, or installing Windows if you have a brand new machine. In our case today, this machine up here is having a lot of issues with Windows drivers, software, everything's crashing. We've run a bunch of tests and benchmarks. It's not hardware related. So our next
step.
Yeah. You're gonna cut this out, right? Yeah, you are. It's gonna go in the blooper reel.
I guess.
Anyway. So our next step now is to reinstall Windows and see if a fresh install and new drivers is gonna solve our issues. Two things you're gonna need. You're gonna need a laptop or a desktop running Windows, and you're going to need a USB drive of 8 gigs and higher, or higher.
I guess that's what you need, and then
we'll show you later in the video how to create one of these. Okay, so before we can install Windows, we obviously need a Windows Media Creation tool. So we are going to go on to Google, search Windows Media Creation Tool. The first link here, this will vary language-wise depending on where you are in the world. For us, it's Danish. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go here. It says, well, this is in Danish. It says, do you want to install Windows 10 on your PC? And I want to download the tool now. It'll pop up down here. Open file. Yes, I want to run it.
Itchy,
Yeah.
itchy, yeah. Okay.
So once it's started up the program here, it'll be a bunch of license terms and terms of agreements, and we don't have time to read it, so we're just going to click accept.
You just gave away your firstborn child.
Yeah, I'm not having kids.
That went personal real quick.
Well, Microsoft's going to take them all. I've clicked this button a lot of times.
Oh, there's a fly in there.
So once it's done all that, you want to click Create Installation Media, USB flash drive, DVD, or ISO file for another PC. We want to click Next. And you can decide what language you want, what edition you want, what architecture. We're just going to stick with the recommended options. It'll choose a language based on the language of operating system on the machine that you're creating it on. So if you are Danish and you're borrowing your Chinese friend's laptop, you might want to set it to Danish in case you don't know Chinese.
See.
That's Spanish.
Yeah, well, I don't know the word for yes and...
Anyway, you want to just click Next. We're just going to leave it on recommended. And we're using a USB flash drive. See here, it needs to be at least 8 gigs. Good thing ours is. Gonna click Next again. It's gonna come up with your removable drives. So for us, this is our E drive. We plug that in. So for us, that's our E drive. It's plugged in behind the desktop here. In our case, it's desktop. Doesn't matter if it's desktop or laptop.
So just
Gonna click Next. We might as well.
I guess so.
It, yeah.
Keep in mind that if you had an external hard drive connected to your computer, that would have shown up on the list as well, and you do not want to make your external hard drive a bootable Windows media. Yeah,
make sure the only thing that you're okay with formatting that's plugged in is the USB that you're okay with being a Windows drive.
And everything's going to be deleted, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what it's doing now is basically downloading the Windows 10 ISO file. This depends on your internet speed. Again, everything depends on internet speed. Ours is pretty fast, so this will only take a few minutes. First step, machine is on. We're going to take our USB and plug it in. We're going to attempt to plug it in. Okay, so depending on what brand or motherboard you're running, this is going to be a little bit different. Generally, it's delete to get into the BIOS.
I think I'm going to put in like
a list of all the different motherboards. For our case here, we're running an MSI motherboard.
So
it's F11.
Yeah.
So we're going to Control-Alt-Delete to restart the system, and we're going to spam F11.
Keep in mind that if the machine has secure boot enabled or fast boot enabled, you might be skipping the boot menu, so you won't even be able to do this. So that's something to keep in mind.
Generally, it's disabled. So this is our boot device selector. You see on top here is our, this is the SSD that's installed in our system. In our case, we know that our install disk is this general udisk 5.0, and we know that it's on partition 1.
And we're going to be starting it up in UEFI mode, which is the more modern way of doing it.
Yeah, it's the modern standard of installing.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit enter.
And then it's going to look weird.
Sometimes it looks weird, sometimes it doesn't. And this takes everywhere between 5 seconds and a few minutes, depending on your machine and the USB that you're running.
Yeah. So if you have a faster USB, it's going to go faster. That also, that's also for the process of the actual installation when we get there. Copying of the files and all that stuff is also dependent on the speed of the source.
So in our case, our USB is made in US English. So what we want to do, for our case at least, is we want to make sure that our keyboard and input method
and the time and currency.
And
so
time and
if
currency.
you just take time and currency, it'll actually put Danish in both. Boom. So now we have English operating system, but it's Danish time and Danish keyboard
inputs. Yeah. So we're going to do install now. So in this case, we're going to click I don't have a product key because it's not relevant right now. And then we're going to select the version of Windows in which we have a product key for if you buy a product key. A product key for Windows is not necessary to use the operating system, but it removes the watermarks and allows you to customize your background, your color schemes, stuff like that. So we're just going to run Windows 10 Pro and click next. And you can read this if you need a good night story, or you can just click I accept, click next. And here we want to click the lower option, the one called custom install Windows only, which is the advanced option. So since this is a system that already had Windows installed on the drive, it creates a bunch of different partitions. So in our case, we want to delete these partitions and make sure that it's one partition on the drive here. So once you see drive 0 here, unallocated space, we have a total of 1 terabyte of SSD storage. If you see drive 1 or drive 2 with a bunch of different partitions, that means you either have an external SSD, which your OS is not on, or a hard drive in which your OS is not on. You can decide to leave those to keep your files, or you can wipe them and start completely fresh. If you have more than one drive, it's very important to click your desired C drive, your boot device drive, and click on it and click New Partition and hit Apply. This ensures that when Windows installs, it doesn't create different partitions that are vital for Windows to run on any other devices, because if this device is removed and there's a Windows partition on here that is vital for startup and operation, it will not work. So once it's created these 3 partitions here, you see it has some system partition,
Microsoft recovery system partition,
and then the primary partition.
Yeah.
So one of these 2 is what it will sometimes place on, say, your drive 1, which is maybe a 2 terabyte hard drive.
which can make sense in some way or form, because the recovery partition is also meant for you in case of like a crash or something like that. So if you want to get a little bit advanced on that, it does in one way or another make sense to actually have recovery on a different drive.
But generally, you want to try to avoid it.
Yeah, I would say that. Also because the fail rate tolerance of SSDs nowadays is like 0.1%. So the chances of you having an actual issue with your drive is slim to none.
So once you create your partitions, it'll automatically highlight your primary partition. If it doesn't, you just click the one with the largest total size, and you want to hit next. And this is going to take a while.
Yeah.
Depending again on how fast your USB is and what sort of media you're using, this will take a while. Ours is only a USB 2.0, but in a 3.0 port, so it's going to take
Forever.
Probably a good 5 to 10 minutes.
We're just gonna skip this, but when this process is over, the machine is gonna restart and you're gonna be greeted with the Windows welcome screen. So we're gonna clip to that.
Okay, so our Windows installer here, it finished installing and copying all the files to the drive. The machine restarts on itself, depending on how your motherboard BIOS settings are set up. It'll sometimes try to restart to the Windows USB. To fix that, you just simply pull out the USB, and it'll boot back up into the screen you just saw with getting ready.
Actually, generally, it's also just preferable as soon as you've gone through the installation process, if you pull out the USB, because once you get into Windows, if you have cleaned any of your other drives and you want to activate those, as in give them a letter and get them ready for actual usage, then if your USB is in there, then the computer will automatically assign that as your drive D. And usually you would want your hard drive as, or your secondary drive to be your D drive.
Okay, so now we are ready to set up our Windows the way that we want it. So in our case, we are in Denmark. And we want to use
Danish keyboard.
You
can't even do that.
You can't click, so we scroll until we see Danish.
Yeah.
And we only need Danish, so we click skip.
Yep.
So now it's going through a bunch of configuration, setting your language, setting your keyboard inputs, checking for updates. Now it's checking for updates. Depending on your internet speed, this will take a while. So in this case, this is just for it's just a personal use computer. It's not for an organization. So we're going to set it up for personal use. And here you can decide whether or not you want to link your computer with a Microsoft account.
Keep in mind that in the future, you might not be able to do anything but this. In other words, you will only be able to use a Microsoft account. But we're not going to do that today.
So we're just going to create an offline account, bottom left corner. And we're going to, Microsoft's going to say, oh, are you sure you don't want to? Yeah, we're pretty sure. So we're going to click again, limited experience. And this user, we're just going to call it.
No, just call it Magnetron for
Call it
now.
Magnetron?
Yeah, with the right T in it. Because we don't know what we're going with this. Go on. Yeah.
So we're just going to call it Magnetron.
We're going to skip the password.
Or skip the password just by hitting enter again. And this is where Microsoft gives you a lot of options to not be hit by ads and people listening to what you're saying. Basically, what we do is we always just click the bottom one and click next. So no, we don't want to share location.
And for ultra speed, you can use your fingers on the keyboard and just go clickety click, just a bam bam, and just go bam bam, and just go bam bam, and just go bam bam, and that's it.
I was walking them through it.
Well, you don't. I mean, the main point is that it's just a whole bunch of options to whether
track
or not
you and give you personal ads and
yeah.
I
mean, Microsoft is going to take data from you regardless. That's also why Windows 10, from what I know, is the first operating system from Microsoft where you don't need to use a Windows key from the beginning. And I assume that is because Microsoft benefits from you using the operating system regardless of you using a key or not, because it's going to take your data and sell it for ad revenue or whatever, right? Or for companies that actually need your information to give you ads. So need is a very loose term in this case. Google, for example. Yeah. So you can't really escape the
ads.
And in the future, as I mentioned before, most likely we're gonna have a situation where we literally can't make local accounts unless you know how. There's probably always gonna be a way. You have to be able to make a local account because that's like super important. But yeah.
Okay. Now we're loaded into our operating system here. It's gonna give you a bunch of different messages and pop-ups in the bottom. We don't want to listen to all this
because just a quick. So right now, the first thing, you don't know this, but your computer is currently scanning your hardware and trying to use the internet and stuff to try to, if you're on the internet, that is, to try to find out which drivers would be smart.
Yeah. So a way you can manually start this is by going to the Windows button, clicking Settings. You want to scroll down until you see Updates and Security, and click Check for Updates. If you messed up with the location and timing, it'll say that an error occurred, and you basically just need to right-click on the clock and date down here, say Adjust Date and Time, and then untoggle and retoggle Set Time and Time Zone automatically. Then you are able to update. So here it's going through a bunch of different updates. Just let it run. Once everything is done, you see it downloading here, installing here. Once everything is done, it'll prompt you with this computer needs to be restarted to continue. Just click restart and we'll show you that once this is done, and then you're pretty much done. There are some key programs that we advise you use, but they're not necessary.
Yeah, we're not sponsored or anything by the manufacturers or the producers of these programs, but they're just, in our opinion, the best ones to just have as your basic monitoring tools, and just like to know what your computer contains. Also, the entire process that we're going through right now is amazing because Windows is pretty good at figuring out which drivers make sense. But if your computer in one way or another doesn't act like it's supposed to, you might want to go look for drivers yourself. And to do that, you need to know what your computer actually contains. And that's what these programs can help do
for you. Yeah. Okay, so now that it is done, and see here it's saying pending restart on, well, not all of them, but the two that are left. We just want to click restart now, and the computer will restart. And
this might take a while.
Yeah, depending again on your system, your internet speed, whether or not you're running an SSD or a hard drive. It's all dependent on your machine. Okay, so now we are back here. So we're first going to check again whether or not it's ran all the updates. You're up to date. That's good. We can right click on the Windows button to ensure that we're not missing any drivers by right clicking and going to Device Manager,
also known as enhedshåndtering in Danish.
Yeah, if you're Danish. See, if we were missing drivers, it would have a little exclamation point or a little triangle that's yellow, and then saying basic driver if it's a graphics card, or depending on what it is. I don't actually know what they say for the others.
It depends on what kind of device it is, but for example, with your graphics card, it would say Microsoft Basic Driver because that's the basic driver that it installs before one of the drivers from one of the vendors, NVIDIA or AMD, get installed.
Basically, you're not in doubt. This is how it's supposed to look. No exclamation point, no big yellow triangles. So this means our system is ready. So what we want to do now,
at least we would think that this makes sense. And no, you guys really don't have to do this. But I mean, if you do care just a little bit about which computer you have and the health of your computer, then there are some tools that are pretty nice to
have installed. So first we want to go to Google and accept their terms of service. And we want to type HW monitor for the first one. It's on the website called cpuid.com. Usually it's the first option. You want to click this, click the setup, remove the ad, click download now, and it pops down here.
You can just, it's already on, we're on the same website, so you can actually just find CPU said on the same. So
software, CPU said, up at the top here it says software, click CPU Z, click the setup English, click download. So now we're going to install the hardware monitor. I'm sure you all know how to install programs.
And luckily, this is one of those programs that doesn't have any bloatware, so you can literally just run it through. At least the current versions. We can't say about the future versions in case you're watching this sometime in the future. So,
boom, both programs are now on the desktop here. hardware monitor essentially monitors your hardware. We got temperatures. This is our package temp for our Ryzen 5 5600X. You can tell how much power it's drawing, how much amperage, the utilization.
There are a lot of things you can take an eye at, but like if you want to just make it basic, okay, so clearly it hasn't detected all of it, so we're just gonna start it again in admin mode and see if it actually detects more stuff here. Sometimes the detection doesn't quite go as it should. We'll see now. No, it still hasn't. So it seems like the graphics card hasn't been detected by hardware monitor, and that's probably because we have a Windows driver that, actually, you can see there, display driver, it actually says Microsoft Basic Display Adapter. So that means that this graphics card is not installed properly. So in this case, we're gonna go install that in a second. But first, let's just go through this. This one up here is your motherboard. So if I pull out the name tab here, you can tell that this is a motherboard called a MicroStar International, in other words, an MSI A520M-A Pro. So if we went on Google and searched for MSI A520M-A Pro, you can go onto the website for this motherboard and get drivers if you needed it from there. But it seems like, for the most case at least, Microsoft seems to have done it in this. Also because these are so new. So yeah, you don't need drivers for your CPU per se. You don't necessarily need drivers for an SSD. Some do because they are faster than others and need a special one. But we're gonna have to go get the NVIDIA driver. So we're just gonna search for it on Google.
I'm gonna go on Google here.
Search for NVIDIA RTX 3060 driver.
And this, of course, depends on what graphics card you have. This is just, we have a 3060, so that's what we're gonna search for. I'm gonna click the top link. And,
hit by a wall of text.
Yeah. Here, right at the bottom, GeForce Game Ready driver.
Oh, and if you don't want to do this, there is a website that is way easier called techpowerup.com. Not Tech Power, because I'm an idiot. Techpowerup.com. Because this is like a great website also just if you want some news on hardware and stuff, but they have all the newest drivers lying in here, and we know that this driver works for this card specifically, but this is a way faster way of getting your driver than downloading it from NVIDIA because their servers are faster. Yeah. Because NVIDIA probably has a whole bunch of people downloading from all over the world and stuff, so I guess they throttle it somehow. Point is that Tech Power Up's faster. So this is the same one we would have been downloading from NVIDIA anyway. So yeah, actually that one's older even.
Yeah, the one we're downloading is newer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's probably because, this is the WHQL driver, which is the latest 100% confirmed Windows driver. I don't remember what WHQL stands for, but that's basically what it means. So we're just going to get the newest one from NVIDIA.
That's also WHQL, see?
It is?
Yeah, look, drag this down.
It says there.
WHQL.
Yeah, true. Well, I guess NVIDIA is just behind on...
NVIDIA's lazy.
Well, it's because that this is the product page for the RTX 3060. If we were to go under drivers and find, nope, we're not going to get that. Find, the specific card and everything, then it would probably come up with that suggestion as well. But this is, it's way faster to get it from Tech Power. Actually, I'm not sure, but do they actually have like CPU set and hardware monitor?
You have CPU Z there, CPU Z.
So would you look at that? It actually even has, you can get, where with utilities? No. Tweaking, real time, sysinfo. Yeah, there you have CPU Z.
But no hardware monitor.
No hardware monitor. But we haven't gotten around to CPU set yet because CPU set is like the most recognized program out there for verifying overclocks and memory speeds, and it's also just, it has a lot of information about your product in it in itself. Not something you need. But while the NVIDIA driver here is installing, we're going to go ahead and open CPU set. And the monitor is flipping out now because it's actually installing
The
video driver.
You see the resolution went way up.
Yep. It went to the native resolution, which is great. But this CPU said, right? And I don't know what you need. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you could learn from just by looking at, but memory in here, for example, you can tell that we have 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's running dual channel, which probably means it's 2 sticks. The RAM speed is 1500 megahertz, and because it's DDR RAM, which means dual data rate, double data rate.
Double data rate.
Right, yeah. Then it's 3000 megahertz, and in this case, it's with a latency of 16, blah, blah, blah. That's a whole bunch of stuff that you can get into if you want to learn. The SPD, what's called tab here, gives you actually a selection of looking at which slots, and you can actually figure out exactly which RAM you have in your computer. In this case, it doesn't really have a specific part number, but I can tell that it's a Samsung memory chip put on a Guile PCB running bloody bloody bloop. That's pretty cool. So yeah.
So once it's done installing your NVIDIA driver, it's gonna pop up with this GeForce experience. You can use it, or you can use it if you want to. You cannot. I personally don't use it, but a lot of people do. If you log in, it'll automatically keep your drivers up to date. It'll help you set, known good settings for your games, for whatever hardware you're running. In this case, we're just gonna exit out of it, and we're gonna see if hardware monitor now. We're gonna restart this. If it detects our GPU. Yes, it does. So if we close all this down, now it is detecting NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 here. You can see we have our GPU and the hotspot. And if we now open Device Manager and click on Display Adapters, you can see it now shows NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060.
So one little thing I quickly want to mention about hardware monitor, which is probably the best part about hardware monitor, is that you have 3 different values. You have the current value, the minimum value, and the maximum value of different, objects. So for your CPU and your graphics card, having this program running in your background, and then after a gaming session, checking out what your maximum temperature is hit at any point, well, then you know how bad your PCs might be doing on temperature. So that's one thing at least you could use this for.
Very good program for finding errors and keeping tabs on what's actually going on with your system.
Yeah, if you want to take it to the next level, you could install something like MSI Afterburner and use the Riva Tuner on-screen display to real-time keep tabs on what your computer's doing, but that's a whole different subject. So yeah, this is pretty much a ready computer now. It's reinstalled and everything. Oh,
yeah, it's ready for Steam and games and Spotify, whatever programs you want to install, it's ready for it now.
The YouTubes and the Googles and
the Facebooks.
Yeah, all those stuff. One thing though, I forgot. Oh yeah, if you had multiple drives in this computer, you don't now. Then if you go under disk management or diskontering in Danish, then the drives would be here.
They will be blacked out.
If they're unallocated.
If they're unallocated, they'll be blacked out. If not, they'll just show up as
as a drive,
as a D or E or F, depending on how many you have.
Exactly.
If it's a new drive, when you open disk management for the first time, it'll prompt you with a "Do you want to initialize the disks now?" And you just click yes.
GPT or MBR in general, yeah. When it comes up and it prompts you about which way it wants to initialize, choose GPT if it's a drive that is not supposed to be a part of your system configuration, which is kind of what we were getting at earlier, that you don't want to drive, or generally you don't want to drive that has anything that is bound to a system. You want to be able to take it out, put it into any system and run it from there. So GPT.
And once you initialize the drive, it'll basically, you see how we have 3 boxes here that have a blue top. It'll just show up as one big box with a black top. You just right click it, and then I cannot show you here because this is already formatted.
It just says new partition.
It'll just say new basic partition, and you just basically click next until you have your drive ready.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple, very, very basic stuff, and not a lot you can do to mess it up.
No. yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
So now this machine is hopefully ready. Now we're gonna run some tests on it because we had some issues with it before. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for watching. Let us know if there are subjects you want to learn about, and all your feedback is always appreciated.
Yeah. No, don't pick him up. No, he doesn't like that.
Hi, Joe.
He doesn't like that.
Yes, he does.
No.
Look at this happy face.
No, when Julie sees this movie, she's gonna kill me because he's not allowed to be up here.
Well, he's not up here.
He's not in the movie, at least that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, get
Hi,
him.
Joe.
Give him the. Yeah.
I'm a good puppy.
Oh shit! If he ruins the camera, I'd flip out. Okay, so I don't think. Hi. I'm the guy behind. I'm hiding behind the camera.
He's the voice in my head.
Yeah. So that was the video about how to install Windows with a USB drive. So, yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Cool.
Hopefully it wasn't too confusing.
We're long, we're boring,
We're weird. We had fun at least.
Yeah.
Joe had fun. He was snoring the whole time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great time.